Hello, welcome to Coffee Break Daydreams episode 14. Hope you're well. I've done some writing which I'd like to share with you, and this was in response to a question that came up on a philosophy page. And the question was, do we exist outside our bodies since mind doesn't have location in our brains? So if you'll bear with me, I'm probably not going to look at the screen much while I read this to you. I'll try to maintain contact, but I'll do my best. So the consistent reality that most social contractualism adheres to is that of the person being responsible for themselves first, then their close dependents and family, then friends or tribe, and so on outward, until the focal point for my mind ceases to bear relevance to the situation. So we generally assume that one's own thoughts, my own thoughts, don't have influence over, say, the orbit of this planet. Working it back the other way, identity coalesces from the wider culture. So there's those wide-angle influences, and these don't originate in the brain, they originate in themselves. Yet in order to feel those influences means relating the brain to what is outside of it. This process of relationship to the wider cosmos can come up in ways that relate to basic functional living and practical concerns, and through concepts like beliefs, histories, art, and so on. This process is mind-like. The mind itself is also its own content, its own thought forms, concepts, and so on. And one of these thought forms is the partly rationalised, meaning socially acceptable view that the mind exists within the brain, rather like a wispy jack-in-the-box, the ghost in the machine. Its precise placement within the brain becomes problematic unless one simply states that according to neuronal activity, measurable changes in that same activity delineate the arising of the mental process or mind concept or self-concept. Other areas of the brain light up when we're using different skills like painting, running, constructing complex language models to find fresh ways of looking at things, and so on. How we describe a person in that situation is we say or infer that they are conscious or exhibit mind-like behaviour. Other examples can include moving towards goals, establishing meta rules for dialogue, or just picking up the apple from the countertop. The apple exists out there, or so we imagine, so we construct a convenient shared reality where most of us will assume that the apple is not in here. It is neither, of course, and exists only as a concept used for example. You have already eaten the apple with your mind, yet neither the apple nor the mind exist without each other for the purposes of this argument. The brain is a convenient store for ignorance because it is so capacious, adapting to its own environment to better accommodate those thoughts that come into it from outside. Nor is it entirely right or completely accurate to describe the brain as the origin of those thoughts most convenient to it. We harbour a great many pleasant and unpleasant realities within our whole bodies and within wider ideas of mind. Another construct, the biological identity, is taken literally as given, but that need not stop you imagining or more dynamically conceptualizing other beings as within your value core or self-conceptual framework. So that was kind of how I answered the question. And then I want to go on and explore some astrology, which has to do with Saturn having recently entered into Pisces. And I've entitled this half of the video Boundary Space. Identifying contacting and consciously working with barriers or boundaries in mind space or dream space is an essential feature of development and an opportunity. Saturn has just moved into Pisces on March the 7th and will be there for 2.5 years. So in looking at these two features of reality, firstly, Saturn represents a variety of archetypes. Rigidity, enduring structures, limitations, boundaries, setting ourselves tasks, whether they be practical or soul orientated, overcoming difficulty through disciplined effort, sobriety and the rewards of hard graft. Pisces, meanwhile, is about subtlety, the liminal space between realms, the fluidity of thoughts and feelings, altered states of consciousness, intoxication, ecstasy and ecstatic union, and living deeply embedded in states of receptivity, sensitivity and allowance. Pisces is also a signifier of those ways of being that are changeable, multifaceted and indeterminate. Usually there is the successful effort that the body-mind applies through actions, behaviours, thoughts and feelings to acquire structure or consistent structure. We acquire a sense of self-structure through the persistence of feelings like continuity, reliability, and by showing up for ourselves and others through the patchwork quilt of time. Those we care about or feel strongly for act as attractors for behavioural choices, and that includes people, obviously, but also pets, hobbies and states of mind. If we want to explore particular states of consciousness, it is useful to bring intent and agency in, allowing for our own autonomy in bringing about, or striving to bring about, those most cherished realities and cherished dreams, and allowing equally for those other beings or states of mind to co-create with us. In this way, barriers gradually outlive their functional mechanism as defences. It is in moving into states of non-defended openness that the mind can incorporate and better manifest those teleological impulses like bliss, joy, wonder and awe. Whenever I encounter a barrier in the dream realm, immediately I look for a way through, around, out or beyond, what you might call the search for the portal. Sometimes it's in that acceptance of the boundary to constrict or restrict my mind to specific ways of being that there is freedom in that acceptance, and that becomes the doorway itself. So I've covered quite a lot of ground there, and I hope that sits well with you, and I wish you a sunny afternoon. Thanks for listening.